thank you very much for coming through here, man.
No, thank you, man. It is
Yeah.
nice to be here. Nice area. Great
Thank you.
couch.
Thank you very
Chilling,
much.
yeah.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, I had this idea a while ago about this type of conversation, and it's one of those things where when I think back to my childhood, typically, I think about it just in terms of memories. Mostly pleasant. I don't have very many unpleasant memories that come to mind of childhood, but lately I've developed more of a habit and routine of looking back at my childhood for the breadcrumbs, so to speak. So it's like, for my own understanding of who I am, I kind of go back to when did I first start identifying who I am, you know what I mean, in life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in my personality traits or my interests, or, there are certain things that go all the way back. I always like to dance. You know what I mean? As long as I could stand, I'd like to dance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was just always a thing that I enjoyed. And when I was young, I could sing.
Okay.
When I was young. But it made it evident to me, like I was comfortable performing. You know what I mean? I was never one to chase the spotlight.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Or chase attention, but I was always comfortable.
But it was on you, you would chill. Like
yeah. Like if I got the talent, I'm not shy to show it.
Right on. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now when I think about these type of things, whatever the talent is, so to speak, it's like, remind myself, don't be shy. Like, don't get 40 plus and decide to be shy about your talents. You've always been comfortable expressing yourself, expressing your gifts and your talents. You know what I mean? Or don't get 40 plus and then need more reason to dance than I enjoy dancing. Like, that's enough of a reason.
Yeah, you don't need an excuse or anything.
Yeah. So just do that.
I like that.
I mean? And so, like, I'm curious, like, when you think back to your childhood, like, what are things that you remember as a very, very young person identifying or observing about yourself?
Yeah. So, trying to think back to when I was a kid, when I was really young, right? I mean, I like to sing, I like dance, maybe not so much as you. I was never, and even now, I'm not super comfortable, like dancing, whatever. I think that's amazing talent that people have. I see people do it. I don't know how they do it, but like for me as a kid, I was nearsighted. I needed glasses. I have contacts in now, and I had very small stutter, so I was very like unconfident kid.
Yeah,
and I think some of that still lingers on, into your adulthood. You try to mitigate it and stuff like that. But so I was always like very quiet and introspective of other people, the things going on. It would take me a while to catch up. If I get excited, I stutter. Don't want to stutter in front of people. So I'm just listening and trying to gather stuff. But I was always kind of creative. Like, I love to write. I love to draw. I draw a little bit less now that I'm older, but I still write a ton, whether at work or even just creative writing, like short stories and stuff. Like, I love, I really enjoy doing that. And, as I gotten older, something like you saying, I tried to tell myself to dig into that. I don't need to be, I don't need to be a publisher or whatever. I don't need to do it, but just to just cultivate the skills that you have and what you enjoy doing. Whether you can monetize it or not, just do it, and do it for you. And so I've tried to do that. But that took me a little bit of time. I think it wasn't until I was like 15 when I was a lifeguard for the city that I started being a little more extroverted, because now, as opposed to other spaces I was in where maybe I was the only person of color in there. Right. Now I'm in a place where everybody looks like me. But maybe their lives are a little bit different, than mine. So a little bit of, so I was able to, become a bigger, person in that kind of space. And I love to swim too. I still love to swim. I'm a little heavier now, not as fast, but I'll save you and I'll get there.
Word. Yeah, man. Like, it's funny thinking about the things that like present day, when it comes to the skills, the talents, the gifts, the things, like, it's the reasons are the reasons, but it's so commonplace now that, like, a person, if your identity is monetizable, you monetize it. And it's like, some things can just be who you are and not your vocation in any way. Like it just be what you do when it's just you.
It's different types of wealth.
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah. But like in terms of like artistry, like if you like to draw, it's like, and a lot of it comes from the in my opinion, a lot of it comes from the conditioning and the indoctrination of school, wherein like everybody gets a chance to draw in second grade. And then the kids that are more talented at drawing, they get pushed toward drawing more. Yeah. But they get pushed toward drawing from a very, very early age as, oh, you can become an artist as a career.
Right. You could be something in this. Yeah. But it's like, what does that even mean?
Or you could just enjoy drawing and be good at it. And that's it. Right. You know, but like there is such a immediate like capitalization on commoditizing gifts and skills and talents. Oh yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, no, it's something you can just have for yourself. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to become anything. Right. You know?
Yeah, being you is enough.
Yeah. It makes you think about like you know the actor Daniel Day-Lewis?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He retired twice, I think, from after like being successful already.
He was an intense actor, yeah. Absolutely. Like
But like I think the most recently, like he retired and then he went to learn to be a cobbler to make shoes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because it's like he just wants to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, that's awesome to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like if I can afford to, I think that for me, that is the ideal retirement. Like if I do get to a place where I literally don't work for income anymore, I've set up the things that need to be set up that I don't need to exert myself for income. I want to spend the rest of my life being a student.
That's awesome.
Like I want to choose studies, study making shoes, study raising cows. That like I would like to do that. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because then it's the freeness of I don't have to make anything out of this. I just get to acquire it and learn it and get perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that. I think we might be close to that. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I know people have said like it's easier to think of the end of the world than the end of capitalism. Once you're in that system, it's hard to get out of it. But you know, for just two, I'm thinking of like Michael Jordan, right? When he switched from basketball to play baseball, because he grew up playing baseball. He loves baseball. He was able to do. That's kind of dope. Yep. Now, two other examples I bring up, like Shaq or Snoop Dogg, right? When they're on like basically like side quests now because they already like you know they already won. Right. They're not doing whatever they want now. True that sometimes they're monetizing it, but I think we're at a level now where it's like people like seeing Snoop Dogg do stuff that the Snoop Dogg of 30 years ago would never see him doing. Right. And same thing for Shaq. Like you know they're able to do that even though like they're inner city black dudes and they're able to do now anything. So I think we're close to getting to a space where people can just be who they are and like and experiment, do what they love, you know, and just do that. So I think we're close. Yeah. But yeah, it's hard to break out of that mindset, particularly when you're in it so early and you don't even know you're being indoctrinated. You're getting grades by the time you're in first grade, right? Maybe kindergarten even. Like people are grading you and putting you in certain categories, and it's hard to break out of that.
Yeah. Tell me, how was your pubescent years? Is that right? Puberty.
Yeah. So like high school
your
stuff?
Coming of age years, high school.
Yeah. So I went to high school in Jersey City, Hudson Catholic, and there were probably a dozen of us that were from Newark. Yeah. And you had kids from Bayonne and stuff like that. And there was a little bit of conflict. So I mean, I talk about like when I was 15 as a lifeguard in Newark and learning a lot of lessons there. Some of the lessons I learned from being a lifeguard here helped me when I was when I was in high school. I was a lifeguard throughout high school too, so I was able to talk smack a lot better than I did, before. I was able to not get into serious fights, but I was able to defend myself and also my city too. And it's interesting because when you grow up in Newark, I guess anywhere you grow up, you have a protection of where you go. No one thinks that they live in like the worst place in the world. And Newark is far from that. But so to hear other people say, like, even if you're from West Orange or Verona, Montclair, in New Jersey City, for them to talk. And sometimes it was jokes, but I never took those jokes like lightly. I always took it as like a personal
got you
kind of thing. But all that to say was all boys high school. So I don't know how it would have been different. It'd have been women probably would have been more fighting, maybe less. I don't know. It's hard to say. But no, I had a good time. I did make some good friends there. Time goes on and stuff happens, but I still have a few tight type friends from the high school years.
Yeah, isn't that funny how you really, really think that your high school friends are going to be your lifetime friends?
Yeah.
Like, you can't see it, you know what I mean, any other way. It's like, it doesn't take very long before you realize, like, oh, maybe a couple, maybe one, maybe none.
I think that's, again, it's a generational thing too, because like our parents and their parents, like after high school, you were an adult for real,
right?
You might have had, you might have had a whole family mortgage or starting on, getting a house. Whereas like for us, you could be like, I'm 35, right? I don't have a house. So it's a whole different thing. Like your life is just so much more. And some would say your childhood or whatever is just so much longer, than it was in the past. And I think we're still in that system where people think like, oh yeah, high school, like that's going to be it. And it's like, not even if you don't go to college or whatever. I'm just saying like just your life is just so much, so much longer now.
Yeah, and like. I think about this. I talk about this a lot. The pace of progress increased so rapidly, and in so many ways, from the time when our parents were in high school to the time that we were in high school to today. It's like, whatever 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Most people lived in the same city they worked in, like most. You know what I mean? Like you had a significant amount of people who might have lived in the next city over or two cities over, whatever. But like the idea of like people working remotely was obviously unheard of.
Yeah, right.
But scaling even back from that, it's like the idea of there were so few people who traveled for work. You know what I mean?
If you were traveling, you were like a traveling salesman or something.
Like,
it was like, a very unique kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. It was like, and even a lot of those guys, they weren't flying, and those, men and women, but they weren't, some were flying, some were on trains, some were in cars. But that was like a segment of the workforce.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas now, traveling for work is just so commonplace.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to just and to not be the CEO or a director or department head or anything. Just be like in this startup or whatever. It's like, oh, I gotta go take a flight to the West Coast,
right?
And that's just what it is. And you go do the meeting, do the pitch, come back.
I think about that when I'm on the highway and I'm, I work in Morristown, so it's like the idea of driving, 40 minutes an hour to work, where people who live in Morristown are driving, the opposite direction. It's like, man, we could have just just stayed home.
Switched up. But just that idea of like how much more space was created for us to take up contributes to us not having the same friends.
Right.
We don't all go work at Ford for the next 30 years.
Exactly.
Or whatever, the city's version, any city's version of Ford is. You know what I mean? But like a lot of those things were so commonplace that kept so many people in a container.
Right.
And then years pass and like those things fall away and technology advances and things get faster and
people don't stay at the same jobs as long.
People don't stay at the same
jobs. Even the people
jobs.
that could, right? They'll bounce around like, and really you should. I haven't read too many studies on it, but just generally the idea, and I got some young kids at I say kids in their 20s, but I'm the old man in there. And it's like, some of them talk about like leaving or whatever. And I tell them like, well, one, they used to say, you don't go shoe shopping barefoot. Right. I believe in that. Right. But just, learn what you can from this job. And if you feel like you want to move, go ahead and do that. I mean, don't have the stigma of, I got to be here for, and what I do, no one's going to be doing that for 20 years. Like that's crazy. So, but you're right. Just the idea we're able to do all these things and that wonderful and terrible freedom that we have to kind of shape, our friend group and our, and our world. Right?
Question I want to ask you: what is your relationship with ambition?
I hate to be the guy to say you have to define ambition, because I feel like the word ambition has a lot of like negative connotations. I think there's a way that it manifests in society. It's like someone's ambitious. I think of like the person at a meeting that won't shut up, that just keeps on talking, doesn't say anything, then don't follow through with nothing. You know what I'm saying? That's what I see as like somebody wants to do that. But I think true ambition is like you have a goal, something that you want to do, and you're willing to work hard, for it. And I think for me, again, I was introverted, childhood, until I was about 15 or so. So I probably didn't have that same type of extroverted ambition, but
Gotcha.
I did believe in working hard.
Yeah.
And like I said, I wanted to be a lifeguard. Swimming came more or less naturally to me. There's a lot of great, good swimmers in my family.
Okay.
So I love the water. That was something I felt confident in, and I knew I was going to do that. But I was really determined to be a lifeguard. And now the $11.31 I got an hour wasn't bad either.
Right.
You couldn't tell me nothing.
Right.
I was rich, but no, I think that just translates to today. When I'm a grant manager, I'm writing grants and reading RFPs and dealing with CFOs that have trouble understanding certain things. I just try to do the best that I can. I think that gives me great pride in that at the end of the day, end of the week, that I say, hey, I got this stuff done.
Right.
I'm holding myself to a high standard outside of whatever standards the job has for me. It's like, I hope, I have certain things that I want to do for myself.
Yeah.
And, and I think my parents obviously had a lot to do with that. And there's still great examples for me. And I'm super lucky, to have them.
Yeah. I agree with you. Like, I think ambition is largely reduced in its like definition to ruthlessness and like sleazy salesmen and like
they do what you need to win kind of thing.
Right?
Screw somebody over or something.
And it's like there is that may be how ambition manifests in some folks and in some places, but there very much is the ambition that is just I not only hold myself to a standard of excellence, but I have a fire in my belly about meeting it. Like I don't just meet it in some rote obligatory way. I'm not a Manchurian candidate to it.
Right.
Like I really want to hunt for. Like I have that feeling of like, no, I want to compete against my own inferiority. I want to always beat inferiority and mediocrity and laziness and you know what I mean. I want to beat those parts of me. That's how I see and process ambition. And so it makes it fun for me to do those things because I acknowledge that I do have those parts of me somewhere to some degree, right? And they come up in the most inopportune times.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's like you rarely get a great night's sleep before the big game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
So that morning you don't feel like moving at the pace you need to move.
Yeah.
It's like that's when you need to compete against those parts of you because those parts are being fed.
Right.
The laziness and mediocrity is being fed by that. Poor night's sleep.
Oh yeah.
And how you feel the next morning. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I got to fight against that. I got to compete against that.
I never looked at it like that. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Because I think like to say that for me, I think for me, one of the big things that I try not to be, and you're right, only try not to be in so much as I see it, and I've seen it certainly in the past, and I try to work, and be a better version of me later on,
right.
is cowardice.
Yeah.
And I think that, because there's a lot of times in life where we're able to be courageous. Well, I think this is obviously just me talking, but I think everybody knows like what the right thing to do is in a certain, in most situations, maybe not in all, but in most situations we know like, oh, you stand up against this, stand up against that, but we don't always do it for whatever reason.
Right.
Sometimes we have good reasons for not doing it. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying everybody should, should voice the resolution, but I'm just saying like, I think for me in my regular life, is things that I do, whatever goals that I have, I try to have a little bit of, at least not have cowardice. If I can't have courage, at least limit the amount of cowardice that I have,
Yeah, like there's, and I mean, it's kind of, I think they are, like they ultimately cancel each other out, where it's like, if you work to eliminate cowardice, you build courage.
Sure.
It takes courage, and you're just feeding the courage. You know what I mean? No. But, what's interesting is how in some instances, the confrontation with a moment that either calls up courage or cowardice is not even a moment or an instance where the other person or the circumstance shares the same perspective with you of what's happening. Like sometimes it could just be a thing with it. You can just have a personal principle that you have to be courageous about defending and upholding. And the landscape, the environment, the episode, the counterpart, the person might not even know that that's at play.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's still an instance of courage or cowardice for you internally.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you know that this is connected to your principle. It's not connected to whatever they're dealing with. It's not for you what it looks like. It's like, oh no, I'm not a liar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would have to lie for this to go easy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like if you laugh at a joke, that's not good.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
But in a space where maybe everyone they're not even taking the joke as harshly as it sounds to you.
Right.
You know, and for you to
but if you like
to call on it, it might make you look like the bad guy, but at the same time it's like I can't let that slide.
Right.
Like I can't I gotta at least address. You might not have to fight, but we're gonna have to, you gotta let it be known, you know, what the deal is.
Yeah. And it's like those instances are really trippy.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like it's the mental experience and exercise, and it's a solitary experience. Like nobody knows this is what you're dealing with in that moment. Nobody knows that it's like, oh no, I have a principle about that, and that's not funny to me.
Yeah.
And it needs to. My character demands that I make it known that that's not funny to me.
Right.
I don't get to chuckle at that. You know, even if nobody would call me guilty for chuckling. Even if they're all chuckling.
Yeah, they're cool, and then no one's gonna remember the joke in the next minute or whatever. But it's like, nah, that was foul.
Yeah, that's so trippy, man. That's so true. But I also feel like that's the training ground for life. It's the 1-player games that we have mentally in life is like that's the training ground for when you are dealing with other people and they know what you're fighting for or against. Yeah. And they're fighting against what you're fighting for or fighting for what you're fighting against. It's like, oh, well, I have confidence in me because I beat me.
Right.
So I don't really have confidence that you could beat me because I ain't never seen you beat me before. I've seen me beat me before. You know what I mean? And so you get to like essentially go out on the field and run your plays.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you've practiced these plays against the best offense you've ever come across, which is yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that stuff is fun for me. I find a lot of fun in that and a lot of reward. You know what I mean?
It's definitely rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's like it becomes one of those things where a lot of times these instances don't get talked about because of a number of reasons. One of which is like, you can't peel back all the layers to like, let somebody in on the story. Like you're personally, psychologically aware of so many layers of the thing. Yeah. You can't really share this story. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so when it comes to pass, whatever it is, it's like you again, it's you in solitude, but you got to watch a movie nobody else got to see. You know what I mean?
I like that. That's
and it's like, especially when it's a good ending. It's like, oh, and in the end, I stood tall. You know what I mean? Like that stuff is like, that was a great movie. Yeah. I'm just the only one that saw it.
No, you're right. You're right. More of us probably should write like memoirs and, you know, in diaries and journals or whatever. Yeah. But, you know, I think I did that when I was really young, but I don't do that nearly enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's funny. I think the most recent memoir that I read was Will Smith's. Did you ever read his book, Will?
I have not, no. Yeah.
It's a really good book. It's a really good book. And it's, you know, timing is hilarious, of course, but like it came out just before the Chris Rock Oscars episode.
Episodes are good.
Yeah, right.
No, he does drop some gems. I've seen some of the, I guess maybe YouTube shorts or some short clip videos. I like the thing where he says about how he's on a like you're on a treadmill and I'm just gonna keep running kind of thing. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. You know? And I think I caught that at the right time because that's when I started, you know, running with the club around here. And I was like, literally like running and that competitiveness and that talking about ambition or competitive. That's when I'm competitive. Don't tell anybody when I run, I'm running to kick somebody else's butt, whether I do or not. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm doing. I'm running to beat somebody. I'm not. People say I'm running against myself, but I'm physically running. I am running to beat somebody. Believe that.
Yeah, I gotta be passing people.
Yes. And there's certain people I pick out and they don't know it. They might know it after the fact. And we're cool. You know, we're all friends and stuff. But it's something else.
Yeah, man. I dig that. I need to get back out with Brick City Run Club. Is that who you?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, shout out, Brick City Run Club.
Yeah, I ran with them like a few weeks ago, but I think I've gotten really out of the habit of running outside in the cold. Like
it's a different beast.
Winter, for some reason, I was just not with it. Like I don't enjoy the treadmill. This winter, it's just been a treadmill winter for me.
Oh, okay.
It's like I don't know, for whatever reason, my body or my brain was just like, nah, you just need to run. You don't need to be outside. And I was like, all right, that's what it is.
I gotta tell you, because I told them I missed the last couple runs. I had injured the back of my leg. I pulled like a muscle or ligament or whatever.
Really?
Yeah, I'm fully recovered now. Like this Sunday, I can probably get back out there. You know, now I have to, I guess now. But yeah, it was rough. But I told you, because I had just turned like 35, late December, and then like. Yeah, in the middle of January, I pulled something, doing something I've done all the time. And it's like, and I felt, not to be over dramatic, like I felt like my mortality in that moment. Like, man, I'm actually injured. For real. Like, and I probably should have went to the hospital, but I just, put some icy hot and stuff on it, just took it slow, and it's fully back now. But at the same time, it was a week or so when I was like, man, this is hard. Just walking is difficult. Like, it was something else.
Isn't that crazy? Like, I think about like it's been a while ago that like I was playing basketball one day and somehow I was running and I stepped wrong and I hurt my leg somehow. And I was of that, mentality is like, I'm gonna just rest this off.
Yeah.
The rest ended up being like for months though.
Wow, man. Yeah.
Like I just didn't have it in my leg anymore. And I probably definitely like at least bruised a bone somehow. I mean, if that's that's the thing, right? You can bruise a bone, can't you?
I think so, yeah.
But I should have gone to the hospital. I should have gone to see a doctor.
Why didn't we go to the hospital? Like, I didn't want someone else with a scope, telling me like, you injured this. I didn't want to know what it was. I just wanted it to heal.
Yeah.
Like, just give it some more time.
Right. It's like there's this thing of like, if I don't see bone or blood,
right.
I just gotta give it a chance. That's funny though, because like I do think a lot of that comes from our upbringing in that. I remember reading this Malcolm Gladwell book that talked about, I think it was Outliers, and it was talking about how how people behave largely based on what was normalized for them as a child, right? So like for one example, it was like these two people they were both like certified geniuses, right? One grew up poor, one grew up wealthy, and the poor one ended up dropping out of college. Ended up working like as a bouncer at a club. And this is a certified genius.
Okay.
Right? The other one, same whatever IQ level, same, mental capacity, ends up like working on the Manhattan Project and like top tier scientist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This kid, it was like a sociologist, I believe it was like shadowing a family. Right, so she like stayed with the family. She would go run errands with them. She would just shadow them and what their behaviors were. And one day, the mom was taking the son to the dentist, and on the ride to the dentist, the mom was like, turned back to the kid like, "Do you have any questions for the dentist when you get there?" And the kid's like, "No." And she was like, "All right, well, you need to have some questions for the dentist before. You need to at least have one question for the dentist before we leave there." And so, they go to the dentist. Dentist does a procedure, whatever it is. At the end of it, as usual, dentist asks, "Do you have any questions?" And the kid had a question. And so he asked a question. The dentist answers the question. They have a little dialogue back and forth. They go on their way. And what the sociologist, and I think by extension, Malcolm Gladwell, talked about from that was like the kid, by that experience, learned that the dentist works for him. You're not a car at the mechanic when you go to the dentist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this is a service that you're receiving by somebody who's working for you. And it's like if I was a kid and I got that understanding, I would have a different view of dentists, doctors, all the things.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's not just because of money. It's also just that the understanding of the hierarchy in that way. Of like, in order to like, I may be the car while you're looking under the hood, so to speak. but I own the car. I'm not just the car.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so you're the mechanic. I get to make sure that I'm comfortable that you're doing the best service on the car.
Right.
I'm not just subject to what you do. And then I go on my merry way.
And yeah, that makes sense. You have some ownership in the process. Like they may be the experts, right? And you want to listen to them. They give you their opinion,
right?
But at the same time, you have to contribute to that. You know what I mean? You should understand it as best as you can,
right?
What they want to do, and you have to make the final decision because you're the one that's going to have to live with it, whatever that is, whether it's your teeth or your health or whatever.
Yep. So yeah, I think a lot of us would have gotten a lot more comfortable going to the doctor if we just had a different paradigm of like what that is.
Yeah, that's a good one. Even the power like of asking questions and how that can shape like a space. Because it wasn't until I was my second or third job that someone was like, "Oh, in the interview process, you should be asking like certain questions." I didn't know that.
Right.
I was there pitching myself on why they should hire me, or here's my experience, or here's what I'm going to do, or whatever. I never thought about like, oh, I should actually ask this a few questions that I could ask, and they actually like when you ask questions. Yes. It's like so now I know that going forward. But I didn't know that for the longest time. It was like that being like a kind of cheat code.
Yeah, I remember I got a job once at a wine distributor, and I was a wine salesman.
Yeah.
And I got the job purely off the interview. I'd never been in sales before that.
Oh, okay.
I might have been in sales. Yeah, I did have one job in sales. I didn't like sales, though. To this day, I don't really like sales.
Really? Okay.
But I definitely didn't have any experience in wine sales or liquor sales. And that's a whole different beast than everything else because it's like the ABC and what you can and can't do and alcohol being alcohol.
Sure.
But purely off that interview, I got the job. And then I had to go about learning how to do this job that I have no clue how to do. And it wasn't that like I, was faking it till I make it, but I was just like, oh, I'm smart enough to ask about this job, about this industry, about this company, and like what you're trying to do, as opposed to just, like you said, trying to present myself as what you would want to acquire.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a commodity, right? Like
it's a commodity word.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
And what you said just about like, again, this is another thing of like asking questions is like, because even at my job, right, we had not a lot. We have new people to come in every now and again, and I tell them the same thing because I'm kind of bad at it sometimes too. It's like if you don't know something, ask.
Yeah.
Particularly now you have the job. Like no one's gonna fire you for not knowing something. We're in a very unique space, and no matter what the job is, right? Like even like security officer or whatever, right? If you don't know something, like ask because I say the longer you wait to ask, the worse it could be. You know what I mean? No matter what the job is. So that's something I always got to tell myself too. If I don't know, because I think sometimes you have. Well, I'll say for myself, like I might have an ego where I don't want anyone to know that I don't know something, or I'll pick it up, or whatever, because I'm not an idiot. But it's like it's nothing about your intelligence.
Right.
It's intelligent to ask a question. Be confident enough that you know enough that if you don't know something, to ask somebody. Right?
Fill the gap. That's it.
That's what it is. Yeah.
And then the other thing is like psychologically, and this is like on the job and on the job interview. As far as people's egos go, people like being asked questions.
Yes.
Like people like being the one to answer. You know what I mean? It's like it's the opposite of school and tests and whatnot, where like you don't want to get called on to answer the question.
That's where it comes from. I was trying to think. I was like, where the heck does that come from? That's why, because the teacher asks you a question, or if you have to raise your hand, you're singled out, right? It's a whole thing. And for people, you're introverted or young or whatever, that could be a really tough experience. That's probably where it comes from.
Probably. Yeah.
Right.
So follow-up question that I ask folks after the relationship with ambition is, what is your relationship with gratitude?
Gratitude. So I grew up, and I still, like you met my parents. Like I just I always had a base of a support system that was like unconditional love. As much as I haven't seen any other type of love like that. You know what I mean? It's my parents, my family, my extended family, my aunts and my uncles. It's just like they always loved and supported me just for breathing. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have to do anything for them to be proud or to encourage me. So I grew up extremely lucky. I know not everybody has that. And so as far as gratitude, I probably could be a lot more grateful. Like with that said, I'm extremely grateful all the time. I remind myself, particularly as I get older. It's like I'm grateful. Like for my health, like I said, I got injured, but I was able to heal fairly quickly.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like but I try to give it back. I think like particularly when it's folks like my my grandparents aren't here anymore, but for my my parents and my aunts and uncles who have supported me, I try to give that directly back. If I can't give that back to them and show them how much I appreciate it. Certainly for like my younger cousins, the next generation, I try to be that same sort of thing. I'm gonna support you, like I said, just for breathing. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm here in your corner, like win or lose, whatever you're trying to do. I'm trying to give them a little bit of what I got. Right? I'm only one person compared to the person I have, but it's like I'm gonna try to be that and just kind of pay it forward. That's how I try to see it. But it's a beast. When I think about it, I'm sometimes overwhelmed by like how lucky I am, to do the things that I was able to do, in no small part because of the system that I had. And I think, let's say it's a generational thing too, right? Larger families, we have relatively smaller families now. That if I do have children, they're just not gonna have the same amount of people.
Right.
I can still give them that same kind of unconditional love though. So I can, I can do what I can do.
That's a great point of view and practice, like to use paying it forward as an expression of gratitude. You know what I mean? Because like you can't, in most cases, you can't ever pay it back to what you got it from, who you got it from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the confidence that was instilled in you, the self-worth, like all those things, the knowing that you're loved, you can't give that back to them. They already know they're loved.
Yeah, it's just hard because the dynamics are just so different, right? Because you can never, because of course you love them back. They loved you. They already started the chain. But it's like, but even in smaller things, like if you help somebody out or do something, and you see them help somebody else in the same kind of like unconditional kind of way, like you'd be happy for that, right? That'd be enough for you. I think most people,
absolutely,
are pretty much like that. So I try to
And it's like you get to, if you obviously you can by gestures, actions, speech, express gratitude to
for sure
parents, aunts, uncles, etc. But there's always more people in front of you than behind you, so to speak. You know what I mean? And to one way to look at it is the more you express to other people what you've come to know in terms of like loving people proactively, unconditionally, supportively, actively, and do it as an expression of what you come from. So it's like, I'm not doing this just because it's who I am. It's because it's what I come from. You know what I mean? So then it kind of does shout out, so to speak, the moms and dads and aunts and uncles and grandparents and whatnot. Because it's like, you make it clear, I'm a vessel. Like y'all should see where I got it from. They the goats.
No, for sure. Yeah.
But like the more people that you give it to, the more you are shining light back on where you got it from. You know what I mean? I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's the hope. I mean, that's
Yeah. I've been really more and more fascinated with gratitude, like in the past few years than I have before, and on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where if you really stop and for me, let me not generalize it. For me, stopping and really taking stock of what all I have been able to become, experience, observe, acquire, lose. Like the list is so long and everything has legs. And so even when it comes to like I said, the things that you lose, things that I've lost, like when people pass away or relationships end or a job ends or whatever, it's like the only reason that hurts is because of how much I valued it. And I had it to value it. Like I didn't just value it from afar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I actually had the relationship with it. And I got to experience it first person, and I got to glean things from it, and I got to influence it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that part of it is like, that's so awesome. So it's still on the list of things to be grateful for, even if I lose it.
That's deep. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like I was changed by it and I got to interact with it. You know what I mean? So like, take grandparents, right? Our grandparents, depending on whatever the relationship is with the grandparent, But the idea that like whatever your grandparent is, they're your parents' parent.
Yeah.
For one, right? And so the way that they interact with you is so special because they're your hero's hero in some degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And the fact that your hero's hero gives you any attention at all is like mind blowing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that they like you and that they might spoil you. They might, you know what I mean, look out for you. You might have like your own personal relationship that the cousins don't have or whatever. You know what I mean?
All right, yeah.
And so like that dynamic is so dope to me that you also have to take into account, or you also have to acknowledge, for whatever reason, you're influencing them, you're impacting them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're changing them too. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And so like it's so the what you lost in that relationship, you know, when they pass away or what have you, is like you got to see your own self-worth because you influence your hero's hero. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're not their hero.
No,
you didn't influence them from above them in the hierarchy.
No,
but you still have that power. You know what I mean? And so like you got to know that by way of that relationship, by way of that experience. Or like a job or whatever it is. It's like all of these things are examples of your own worthiness. And you got to see that example by way of that relationship, by way of that dynamic. And so even in loss, it's something to be profoundly grateful for.
No, that's absolutely true. And then like another thing for that is like, time, right?
Yeah.
Time is relative, but at the same time, for us, I think we see it correctly as it's going, forward, right? We all get older, but it's interesting how when you meet certain people and the time in which you meet them, like I said, the grandparents, they're not the 30-year-old, father or mother of your parents, right?
Right.
They're in their 60s or however old they are, and you're meeting them at a different stage.
Absolutely.
You talk to your parents how it was growing up with them. It might be a little bit of a, they weren't giving them candy and letting them sit in front of the TV or do whatever you might have been able to do with them. So it's interesting to see. That's not better or worse. Just people are different, and you evolve. And sometimes 2 or 3 decades at a clip, you could be a completely different,
absolutely,
not a completely different person, but a completely different headspace. You learn from whatever lessons in between that, and I think that's really interesting to just to think about. And I know something that blew my mind. It might sound a little bit silly, but and I was young when I came to this realization, but to actually internalize it and to think that, oh man, my aunt is my father's sister. I have a sister. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you think you meet, particularly like, I'll say for my family, like. You have so many cousins, you have so many aunts and uncles, and sometimes that might not be the technical, title of them, but you call them that.
Right.
And then when you actually start looking at the tree or whatnot and start matching up who people are, and it's like, oh snap, like that's kind of dope. Like I'm God willing, right? I'll be that, one day kind of thing. Well, that's crazy. And you listen to the stories again that they might have told you when you were a kid, not really listening. You listen to those stories, and it's like, oh wow, that was with your cousin this or uncle that, and it's like. Wow, that's crazy because like now I'm Unc. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's really wild.
Yeah, it's trippy, man. It's like, and then that humanization of our
it's a good word for it,
elders, so to speak, is like it's something that it doesn't happen to a great degree, right? Like you said, like you have a realization, oh, my aunt is my dad's sister or my mom's sister, right? Yeah. And then you start thinking about like, because still, by the time you met them, they don't live in the same house as your mom, the way you live with your sister. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, you're not really seeing them as 12-year-old them.
No.
15-year-old them. You know what I mean? 6-year-old them, whatever, and like you're not seeing them as a sibling in the way that you're a sibling to your siblings. It's more like the family tree, like that's on that branch and they're on the same level, but you don't see them having the same type of relationship that you have with your siblings because you're in the same house when you're a kid,
right? Because you're not in your 30s or 40s whenever you first meet your aunts,
right? But like, but to understand that that's in there.
Oh yeah,
it's in that story,
yep.
and you can connect with the human that they are on that level once you realize that that's in there.
Right.
The same way you can connect with your parents on a different level when, as you get older, you start to humanize your parents more. You accept their, if you call it flaws or intricacies, quirks.
Yeah, I mean, how old were you when you found out that your mother or father were wrong about something?
Right.
And not wrong because you think they're wrong. Like wrong is like, oh no, you're actually wrong on this. I don't know. I can't tell you when that happened. I know obviously it did because I have a different understanding of them and different. But like there was a time where it's like talking about heroes. I don't even know if I'd put them as heroes because they were infallible. Like Superman and Batman tripped sometimes. My mother and father never did. Like they were never wrong. They were. I don't want to say perfect, but like I didn't see them. They weren't wrong by anything that I was aware of. For a while. You know. And then when you realize like life and then it's like you said, it's even more beautiful because it's like you get to see how different folks respond to life. And how the lessons that you take good or bad from that.
Yep.
It's just something else. But there's a time, but for me at least, like my parents and my aunts and uncles to different extents, they were like, whatever they did, like they knew it. Like, they knew what life was about. I didn't see them as, because I'm thinking now, some of those photos when I'm a little kid and they're changing my diaper, they're 29, 28 or 30. I'm like, I didn't know anything when I was that age. Like, like.
Yeah, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. I'm curious to know how you feel about yourself as this world progresses and time passes and technology advances. And like now we're in the world in the time where the conversation is largely about like AI over here, traveling to Mars over here, in geopolitical stuff over here. Will the Earth last? Like global warming, like you know what I mean? And whatever happens, if life continues for the next 40 years, it's like, who will I be though in it? As opposed, like I'm not just going to be in the audience of life.
No.
Who will I be in this? You know what I mean? Like, so do you ever think about that?
Yeah, man. But I think I'm trying to think of it in a way that's not like so arrogant, because you think about, and people talk about the 60s a lot, right?
Yeah.
And just the politics of then, and like you named a few issues that are going on now and likely will continue for the next 40 years at least, right?
Yeah.
We're, I'm not gonna say complicit, but if we don't do anything about it, like we're complicit. I would feel complicit, for the way that I was raised, and also like the privileges that I was, that I was able to that were afforded to me.
Yeah.
I can't like sit it out. You know what I'm saying? I have very little excuses, to not be engaged in some part of that. Right? I might not be able to solve the Middle East or everything, but I can focus on like one thing, right? And whatever time I have, and to do something. So I definitely I'd want to be seen as somebody that tried to do some good. That's the simplest way that I can describe it. And I think you read a little bit more than me. The things I read now are just RFPs and very boring kind of stuff. But I do listen to a lot of videos and stuff like that. So it's like every once in a while I'll get on the road and I'm listening to nothing but Nikki Giovanni and Fred Hampton and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that I'd be anywhere close to them, but the idea, like you said, as far as like what you do is a shout out to the past, just to be like, just to take a little bit of their courage, right? A little bit of what they were doing, and just try to push the ball forward however you can. You know what I'm saying? You might not have as much social capital or whatever as they did. You might not be as charismatic or whatever as either of them, but the issues they face, we face some of those issues, today.
For sure.
And we would be less people if, this is me talking obviously, we'd be less people if we didn't try to fight it with the same kind of intensity that they did. Not to say we have to do the exact same things that they did, but you look at there was a lot of folks that did it in a lot of different ways. Like you look at you don't always have to march. Marching is great and it's needed, but you can do a lot of different ways to do. But I think as long as you're doing something that's pushing it forward and and calling out stuff that needs to be called out. That's all I had to say. I might have not answered your question, but I just want to be seen as somebody like, oh man, the people who do know me, oh man, Ryan, when he was here, you know what? he tried to do some good. Now, hopefully, I'd accomplished some of it. But if I didn't, you could say like, you know what, he made an honest effort to do some good for however span of people that I was able to impact.
Yeah, definitely. It does answer the question. It's like there is just such a, and it is very prevalent right now with the way the United States narrative is right now. Everybody's placing themselves in the audience of it. Yeah, the action is elsewhere,
right?
And we're just watching it or being impacted by it, and it's like that narrative is untrue for one, and it's debilitating. It's like it only makes you do even less,
right?
You know what I mean?
If
like
you have no control over whatever, right? Because
like,
everyone wants to think that everyone thinks their boss is like generally, right? It's like my boss isn't bad, my supervisor isn't bad. But it's like your supervisor and boss, like, are you? Our society like speaks, to itself, even when it's something you don't like. You know what I'm saying? Like for us, for me, like for Obama, like it'd be cool. Oh, man, Obama represents our society. That's a great feeling. But now when it's not Obama, well, guess what? That still speaks to our society.
Absolutely.
We're still a part of that. You know what I'm saying? That's and we said before about the bad stuff or whatever that you're fighting in you.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing this as a larger scale, a larger organism, not just one person. Exactly. Now it's all of us that are doing it. But
absolutely,
we have to. You're involved whether you choose to or not. Right. I say that for people about other things too. When I'm talking about I'm not involved in whatever. It's like, hey, whether you do or don't, like you in it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
yes,
you're in it. We're all trying to row the boat. I just want
Last thing I want to ask you about,
sure,
is your relationship with death. And it could be your own, it could be other people's, it could be a particular story or whatever, but like when you sit and consider the idea of death, how do you paint that picture? Like, what's your relationship with that?
Yeah, it's wild. I said probably around high school, late high school, early college. You take poli-sci classes and stuff, and you learn about Rousseau and other other folks. But the idea like of stoicism, the idea of being or even I'm blanking on now, but even like Nietzsche, right? The idea like we're all kind of doomed could be an empowering thing. As bleak and as dark as that is, it could actually be like a motivating thing. But I think for me, still as being a human, it's kind of like I don't like to think about it too much. And it's certain things. It's like when I was younger and I had, my grandmother had passed when I was very young. My grandfather on my mother's side passed when I was even younger, and everyone was very sad about that. I was sad because I lost like a friend, but I didn't get the scope of how deep that loss was, and arguably contributed to my grandmother, his wife, passing. But now as I get older, and again, you actually connected like, oh, those my mother's parents, right? That's this my aunt is my dad's sister, and these are real things. And then I look at my sister, and it's like, oh man, it would suck, what I'm saying, for her not to be my parents. It's I think of how old my parents are, and it's a blessing to have them. You know what I'm saying? Again, I don't want to say not express gratitude for that, but at the same time, as I think about like, oh man, they're getting up there. Now, luckily, we're in a time where people can be in their 60s or 70s and still do stuff, whereas maybe a generation before, if you were 60 or 70, you had the walker and everything, right? But now we're in a different but still at the same time, like how many of us are going to live to be 100? You feel me? So that's a tough pill to actually like swallow and internalize, and that's really hard. To do. As far as my death, I think even though I did have that injury that did shake me, I don't want to understate how much that shook me, man. I was like, oh man, my body is failing me right now. Right? I've fallen and I may not be able to get up. But outside of that, I think I generally, whether I should or shouldn't, I generally live day to day as if like I'm invincible. There's it'd have to be a freak accident, like a piano falling on me to end me. And then part of me, like I said, the one that's a little maybe more arrogant, is like, it might not be the craziest thing or the worst thing in the world for me to go out on some extreme type stuff if I'm fighting the good fight. That might not be the the worst thing. You know what I'm saying? But when I was a kid too, I used to have night terrors. That's what I think that's what they called it. And I don't know if you know, that's when like you wake up and it feels like you can't breathe. Now you're breathing, but for whatever reason your mind doesn't think you are. That is crazy. So I've experienced that. And that's not fun, like at all. But some people, that's what people say, like, oh, you went, so, like this person, passed in their sleep. That's what I think of when people say that. I'm thinking like that is not that's not something I really want to do again.
Word.
I mean, I guess all of us, have to at some point. But all that to say, I think for me myself, I'm not as worried about it as I probably should be. I kind of see it as something like, oh, it's way down the road. There's a bunch of things I'm going to accomplish before that.
Yeah.
For better or worse, that's just how I kind of see it. When I think about other people in my life and other people who have passed, yeah, it's sad. But then also at the same time, sometimes it motivates me to be like, okay, in the time that I have, like, what am I working towards? You know what I'm saying? Whether, and are my goals whatever I want to do, are they worth it, kind of thing? Right. Not that I'm not living for anybody else, but at the same time, I look at other people and it's like, oh man, I know this person would have wanted to do this, that, and the other, and they didn't, for a reason that was kind of whack. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yep.
And I don't want to, I don't want to be that. So you try to take lessons and not judging anybody, but you try to take the mortality and the totality of life, and be like, let me actually leave it better and leave it doing something that I could be proud of, whether I'm there to see it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think about like the folks who I know and care for, and love, who died, and now they're like a marker for me. Like, because I have the memory of their personality, their priorities, their interests, their actions, like, and if it's somebody that I was particularly close to, and I understand, or I have a knowledge of their perspective behind the actions and like their principles and stuff like that. Like, I have a living example in my memory, even if they're not alive. You know what I mean? Yeah. And some of those things are not, revolutionary things or incredibly principled things. Some of them is just a matter of style, even.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I get to reference these people's style and their expression, whether it's how they talk, how they walk, how they dress, how they dance, or whatever, as like, somebody's gonna remember me.
Yeah.
Not necessarily everybody.
Right.
Right. I don't expect to die famous, but for the people who do remember me, I do want them to remember my style. I want them to remember how I walked my walk in life. Yeah. You know what I mean? And not necessarily like, oh, Tehsuan. I don't need to mean something like Martin Luther King,
right.
You know what I mean, means or many other people of that stature. But for the people who know me intimately, I want their hearts to be able to have that good feeling, the way my heart has a good feeling when I think about how so-and-so dressed, or so-and-so's sense of humor, or how so-and-so danced. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's plenty to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so to that point, my responsibility is to express my style. Yeah. It's like I gotta be me, not just to me. Right? But like I gotta, and then, not that I have to perform, but back to like the conversation at the beginning, it's like I gotta express my things, whatever they are. Right. You know what I mean? It's like I gotta dance because I love dancing. Sure. And people won't just remember me as somebody who could dance. They'll remember me as somebody who loved dancing. You know what I mean?
I love that distinction. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But like you said about like just being with older relatives, or just relatives in general, and how you pick up the mannerisms of them, like that spoke to me. Yeah, because I remember that my great uncle Skidder used to play checkers a lot. I was a chess person. Yeah, I used to play checkers with him all the time. He would say, "I know that's right," and I started doing that. Even when he passed, I started doing that. I didn't even think about it. Right. It wasn't consciously as something that like is a tribute to him, but at the same time, it's like, oh yeah, and I can't. And you look at the older pictures of folks, and sometimes you can pick out like, oh man, that person looks like this person. This person looks like me, or whatever. Whatever the case is. Like that's wild to say that we all like almost to the point we can't even help it. Right. That we're just expressions of of each other, and like and that can go back as far back as I guess photos exist. For sure. But like it's that's
for sure.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's wild. Yo, man, thank you very much, bro.
Thank you, man. Appreciate this is a very comfortable couch.
Thank you.
I can't express that enough. I need to get one of these, man, in my house.